So, what happened? Can you hear me, please? Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. Jordan, can you please? Okay. So, pratyaya alpechata means that in day-to-day life, whatever we receive as food or shelter, this kind of thing, so we have to be happy about it. So, is there a hacker? Okay. Okay. so and then the next one, Dutanga Alpechita. Dutanga Alpechita, Dutanga is kind of like a very strong level of mental practice to cut down all the mental formations that whatever habitual patterns we go through. And you should not tell to anybody. It's like having one meal per day. And then you should not tell, oh, I'm going to have one meal per day. So, or maybe kind of like without giving something, you don't take it. So like that, you're not going to introduce that quality to yourself, to other people. And the Pariyappa Alpechata, that means Pariyatti Alpechata means that whatever you learn, if you study a book, you never mention, oh, I read that book, because of that I know better than you. I used to read this book, that book, I learned this one, that one, because of that I am better than you. So, Adhigama Alpechata means that whatever the spirit, this is very important. I think this is the most important part that we can get today, because nowadays on online, all in YouTube, all Arahatas, all the Buddhas, different versions we can see nowadays, right? So here, see, Adhigama Alpechata means if you have any kind of high mental power, so the spiritual success, you never mention it. You keep it with you and you become satisfied about it. And then when you go to the conventional world, you depend according to the necessary conditions around you. So that is what here the low level of desire, rather than having high level of desire. So I think this sutra is a very beautiful sutra. Whoever look for spiritual development, if that person have this all the 8 qualities together, I think that person can have a very good success even in the conventional world as ordinary person, and then of course it's going to take him to spiritual success also. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Venerable Shantasobana. Actually, you brought up a lot of insights, and I know there are so many who try to be Charlie Chaplin. So I'm so sorry to hear Charlie Chaplin became this number 7. So, but he was very happy with his realization, or he knew his own character. Anyone can imitate him, but no one can. And excuse me, and when we read about his stories, by the time he kind of like he became like a very spiritual person. Yeah. Yeah. Because without letting go yourself, you can't make other people laugh. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, and so I know there's a question from Alisa. She's asking this question from Venerable Ananda from Cambridge. It says, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. Thank you, Venerable Ananda Kalabhavila. Can you please explain more about the Dhamma being for those who enjoy seclusion and not company? Does this also mean seclusion within a community, like within a monastery? Is it seclusion from lay life or people? I think it's a very beautiful question. Yeah. Now, understanding that the seclusion has 2 forms, the physical seclusion and the seclusion inside your mind. There's another beautiful 3 words which appear about the viveka, or the fullness. Kaya viveka, chitta viveka, upadhi viveka. So when we look at seclusion, the modern Western word for this is me time.
when you have me time. When you have the me time, you get to notice a lot of things, observe a lot of things, be mindful about a lot of things. And this me time can be a physical me time to begin. Like if you remove yourself from the busy world, take a hike in a beautiful path, or go on. Canada is really, really beautiful these days. If you walk through the snow in an empty park, there's so much of emptiness, and because that you are deprived with the other distractions which usually people would offer us, we can start looking inwards. Now, one could go to the jungle with a mobile phone, and that is not seclusion. So, the real seclusion is when you are away from all this distraction. Now, being away in a jungle throughout your entire life, it doesn't also necessarily mean that you will be emancipated. That is not liberation either. It's just you're being in a jungle. But when we remove ourselves from the normal birth and go into the seclusion, we start noticing about our body, about our mind, and what is the deeper nature of the reality. So that is the seclusion mentioned here. Also, another way to say that we find the 401 highway here, which is one of the busiest in Canada. Yeah. There are so many vehicles on 401, and we don't get to notice the other vehicles. But if you pull out your vehicle and get out and stay still, secluded, and when you look at the highway, you find so many different vehicles, different shapes, which are going under you. Why I mentioned that is because I walk. So it's taken from my personal experience again. I walk to Conestoga College from our monastery here. And across the Conestoga College, there's a bridge. So I always go up there and then look at the vehicles in 401. There are so many different vehicles in 401. That's why that simply came to my mind. That is the first form of seclusion. But then, in the deeper forms of seclusion, like in the jhanas, the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, you are secluding yourself from the rupture. So that's another very deep form of seclusion. So the first is your physical seclusion, simply staying away from the distractions, the notifications, distractions, the Facebook and YouTube reminders which you usually get. So because of that, you get distracted. So we are avoiding that physical distraction. But once you sit down for meditation, you're leaving one more distraction and then get into a deeper level. And finally, you get to the state of equanimity where there's absolutely no distraction. So that would be the idea of.
Wonderful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let me go to where we go. What is your experience and how do you look at this sutta? Now, I know you're a very famous TikTok monk, busy with a lot of stuff with the young people in Florida, now you're in Vietnam. And I see you continue doing this same thing over there. So, according to what you do and now, what Venerable Anuruddha is talking about here in the sutta. So, how do you uh, perceive all these insights?
First and foremost, salutations to all of the venerables and IS that are present here today. Thank you for having me. Um, so first and foremost, I like to just kind of piggyback a little bit on the question that I believe Lisa or Alisa asked about solitude. And so this is a very fun trip. It's a trip that teaches me a lot about of things. It's been 7 years since I've came back to Vietnam, and one of the thing is about the non-self, the practice of the non-self. So I took this trip because I needed a break from serving the people and engaging into clinical psychotherapy with people, Buddhist psychotherapy. And as I was just doing my own thing with my nieces and nephews and all of the family here, I was prompted by a Sayadaw, a meeting, an abrupt, fast meeting. So I had to drop everything and fly to up north Vietnam. And now I find myself here in the monastery. Upon here at the monastery, when the group arrived, there were all senior monks, and most of them are abbots. And before we wrapped up the night, I actually asked the primary abbot that is here. I said, "Can I? Do you possibly have a room that is just I can be by myself?" And now that I think about it, had I not asked for this room, I would probably not be able to participate tonight because I have to sneak out of the room that they wanted me in with four other monks that's in there. I love being around monks, especially it's a very valuable thing being around abbots, and especially one of the abbot is from Japan. But I'm so used to the secluded life, and as I sit there and explain myself to the primary abbot on our long conversation that led up to the late night, was I said, "Venerable sir, I when I started off being a monk, I just wanted a nice, quiet life. I was just playing with this TikTok thing, and it blew up the way that it did." But my original ideal was to practice the Thai forest ways, and now here we are. I think that the conversation became more interesting, and he opened up quickly because through all of these eight things, this particular abbot, I believe he has the ability to see quickly through people, and I'm just a young monk. I'm just like a baby in here up compared to some of these monks in here. I don't know anything. I told him I don't know anything. I approached it in a very humble way, but he can see clearly that over the course of 9 years that I have tried my hardest to master some of these qualities, being quiet, um, trying to be humble, and trying to live a secluded life, trying to meditate. Um, and so this sutta here, it explains the, I would say, the reward if you heed the advice of the Buddha. And it it reminds us over and over again to try to develop these qualities, try to have this one pointed concentration on these per qualities in an ever changing world. When you travel outside of the United States, and now that I see a lot of things even more clearer now when I'm outside of the country reflecting and sitting and journaling and writing and thinking deeply, is that it certain countries, the system of the country, where people are at, the environment, just everything, the social context, the political context, the economic context, it could really take away a lot of qualities that Venerable Anuruddha is talking about here. And it's exactly that I'm very concerned for the people, is the noble qualities that where you live subtracts away from the beautifulness, the bodhisattva quality in every human, the Buddha nature in every human that they have, the lotuses that they are. But sometimes you have to travel outside to step back and to see, yeah, I think sometimes we're still in the mud. And it's difficult to see certain things when you are still in a very cloudy type of mud in the social context that we are. So hopefully, my encouragement to people is that if the causes and conditions, the conditions exist, to travel Southeast Asia, where Theravadan order is thriving, has always been thriving, and they try their best, and it helps you be closer to the Dhamma, where it's most conducive to practice the Dhamma. Um, Obviously, our limited time here won't do it justice to discern everything that's happening here. This entire sutta could take up a whole year upon deep reflection and deep practice. But I think and this sutta probably summarizes over the previous biweekly discussions that we have talked about. I think as we have less monastics attending, the sutta becomes more dense, so that it so that we can discuss it even longer, and it also caters to the people um, who really likes long suttas, more analytical, psychological suttas. But to make it short, the Noble Eightfold Path leads you to these qualities slowly. The threefold training leads you to these qualities, and eventually, when you read these words, you realize, oh my goodness, how beautiful they are! How beautiful they are to be realized. And all I can tell all of you is, yeah, you can see it very quickly if you spend time to yourself, by yourself, and the importance of samadhi and the importance of vipassana in order to fully internalize um, what's happening here. You'll be left speechless. You'll be left speechless once you have practiced the right way and in accordance to the methodology, especially practicing the jhanas here. But I hope that does it justice, and I'd like to yield the floor back to the remaining venerables. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you, Venerable Trudel, for that beautiful explanation and your own experience and what you're doing, and the essence of this contemplation of a great person. And of course, it's not just within a day that we can cultivate all this. And for close to 3 years now, we have been running this bi-weekly sutra discussion, and we have discussed a lot of sutras, and we see these teachings over and over again. And now here, Venerable Anuruddha, a disciple of the Buddha, who is actually realizing, and I am very glad to hear, thank you, Venerable Shantasopana, for giving his background story. He was a young man who lived a very luxury life, who had everything, and now he renounced the world. Now he says, "Wow, Dhamma is not for that kind of lifestyle. It's for simplicity." So even having that realization is one step closer to, I believe, the realization of nirvana, and that's a very important realization. So uh, yeah, you have something?
Yes, yes. Before it leaves my mind, before it leaves my mind, is that all of these qualities has to do with letting go, which brings a smile to all of our faces. The simplicity of letting go. By letting go, you realize everything here. So when you read the sutta, it sounds difficult, and you hear jhanas, and we all know when we read the meditative states of absorption, the methods to that, and we scratch our heads and we scare ourselves of trying to go into the methodologies. But like the most simplest thing is let go, and to become an arhat before the moment of death is to let go of greed, anger, and ignorance. So I just wanted to add that to just bring a smile to everyone's face, the simplicity of it.
Yeah, thank you. And now we have this young venerable Ayyavadha. You're with the Empty Cloud Monastery in New York City, and Venerable Sudaso actually told me that this sutta is of immense benefit and interest to you, and that you really like the sutta. And so, can you share with us your insights, your experience? And I think our audience would be very interested in your story and how you see these 8 things. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah, very good.
Well, I hope. Can you hear me, Bante?
Yeah, very clear.
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Bante Saranapala, and all the venerables here. I feel I'm a little baby in comparison to the Naga, the giants in the room. So thank you for
The little baby Rahula was enlightened.
So I'm not quite there, but thank you so much for the invitation and all of the wisdom that you have shared, everyone in the discussion so far. And I thought maybe I'll just say a few things that came to mind in case it's useful, but no promises.
Yeah,
Go
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also like to thank Bhante Sodhaso who invited me here. I think probably it came to mind the other day. I was mentioning this sutta. I think one of the lines was coming to mind because I had read it and reflect on it, and I like chanting it. Yeah, one of the things that came to mind, so much has already been touched on by the other venerables, but there were just a few things that I wanted to connect. So one of them was this reminded me a little bit of the Mahagosingha Sutta, which is in the Majjhima Nikaya. Mm-hmm. And there, it's an interesting story where there's a beautiful park or forest that the moonlight is coming in the forest, and it said that various venerable monks are there. So chief disciples. So for instance, Venerable Anuruddha, Venerable Ananda, Venerable Sariputta, Mahamokkallana, all these different monastics. Mm-hmm. And they asked themselves, they pondered the question, which kind of spiritual practitioner would beautify this park? So you can just imagine a forest, a jungle at nighttime, the moonlight is shining in, and there's a kind of a monk or some kind of strange, mysterious spiritual renunciant sitting in the jungle. And what kind of renunciant would just make this so beautiful? And they all answer in line with the qualities that they find the most beautiful and that they have developed the most. So for instance, Venerable Anuruddha here, he says, someone with the divine eye, the Dipa Chakku, so someone who can see other beings, not just physical things, but they can also see beings that usually our brains cannot detect. That would make this so beautiful. And Venerable Ananda says, someone who is Bahussuto, someone who's very learned, who has known a lot of the Dhamma and has contemplated the Dhamma, they would make this so beautiful, just to see someone here who is so knowledgeable. And Mahamokkallana says someone with strong psychic powers, so they all answer with their different qualities. And then they go to the Buddha and they say, who's right? We had this discussion and we all thought this is the most beautiful quality. Who's right? And the Buddha says, well, you're all right in one way. You all said a beautiful quality. But the Buddha says what he thinks is the most beautiful. So he doesn't say that they're wrong. He praises them, but then he adds something. And he says the most beautiful quality in a spiritual practitioner who would beautify this park is someone who would sit down and they would think, gladly, my bones and flesh and blood dry up. I will not get up until I attain awakening. And so it's interesting, right? Because it's a little bit different. So the Buddha doesn't say, oh, the person who is the most beautiful, they're the ones with the most wisdom. He actually doesn't say a quality that anyone particularly has. He gives the cause for all of those qualities to arise. So, right, he says, what is the most beautiful mendicant or most beautiful practitioner? It's someone who puts forth energy. If you put forth energy, you will have panya, you will have vidya, you'll have the Dipa Chakku, you'll have samadhi, so all of these qualities. So the Buddha, he has this wisdom of almost praising what other people say when it's correct, but then adding another layer of complexity, not just adding another quality, but adding something that gets behind everything already said. And this is what I see here. So Venerable Anuruddha is reflecting. He says, Apicha sayang dhammo, nayang dhammo michasa, santurta sayang dhammo, nayang dhammo santurtasa, bhavita sayang dhammo, nayang dhammo sanganikāramasa. And he goes through these qualities, and they kind of have a succession, right? So first we have few wishes, and we don't want much. So then when we don't want much, we feel content. We feel happy with little. And when we're happy with little, we don't want to go and search outside and socialize because we're happy within ourselves. And then we start to realize within ourselves that we can purify our happiness even more. So we put forth energy. We put forth energy, we remove the hindrances, our mind becomes more clear and mindful. Our mind becomes more clear, the mind can enter samadhi. The mind enters samadhi, can start to see clearly, right? So it goes through all these qualities, they build on one another. And so there's a beautiful progression here. And the Buddha says, sadhu, sadhu, that's excellent. He doesn't say, oh, you got it wrong, there's another one. He just says, that's excellent, but this is another one that's also really great that you should reflect on. And that's when he adds, nipa pancharamasa, sayang dhammo, nayang dhammo, papancharamasa, papancharatino, right? So someone who doesn't delight in proliferation and complication and objectification. And what came to mind for me was it reminded me of the Mahago Singha Sutta, where he, instead of focusing on a quality that's developed, he focuses on the cause of the qualities. So these are many great thoughts. And then the Buddha says, well, what's behind developing all these thoughts and bringing them all the way to fruition? Not getting fixated on them, right? So these are all great thoughts, great qualities. But if you objectify them, you complicate them, you proliferate them, you identify with them, well, that's going to end up limiting the benefit of them. So he kind of adds this extra thought, which is basically the thought to not delight in complicated thinking that objectifies experience. It's almost the opposite. So we have all these great thoughts, and the Buddha adds another one, which makes sure that the thoughts don't self-destruct to perfect it. So all these thoughts end with not objectifying the thoughts themselves. And as Venerable Ananda said, Papancha is a complicated discussion.
Yes.
But, without going there, the other thing, though, that came to mind with me about this, if I may, after that comment, is that the Buddha says, Sadhuko tvang anuruddha yantang mahapurisavittakang vitakesi. It's good, it's excellent, Anuruddha, that you reflect on these thoughts. And he says that in the Pali here, Yatoko tvang anuruddha ime atta mahapurisavitakke vitakkesasi tato tvang anuruddha yavadeva akankistasi vivicheva kame. He goes into the jhanas, right? So when you reflect on these thoughts, then you will be able to enter these jhanas, he says. And that I thought was really helpful for myself. Thinking, if I think to take this instruction, usually maybe in meditation we're told, oh, you shouldn't be thinking. We need to stop thinking, right? But that's true. But actually, the Buddha says, first we need to get rid of the unwholesome thoughts and develop wholesome thoughts, right? Like in the, I believe it's the Dvaita Vitaka Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha is thinking, he says, okay, I'm going to break my thoughts into two. These thoughts are harmful, these thoughts are helpful. So then he starts letting go of the harmful thoughts, and he's just left with the wholesome thoughts, like thoughts of metta, well-being. And then he realizes, these thoughts are great. I could keep thinking these thoughts all day, and it would be for my own benefit, and it would benefit other people. But if I keep thinking, eventually my mind will be tired, and then I won't be able to enter samadhi. So why don't I stop thinking? But the Buddha doesn't say, okay, my mind is a mess, I have unwholesome thoughts, wholesome thoughts, now I need to stop thinking altogether. First he divides them, and then he lets go of the bad ones, and then he develops the good ones, and then he lets go of the good ones gradually. So this is what was coming to mind for me, is that the Buddha is actually saying, if you think about these things, then you will enter the jhanas. It doesn't say if you completely stop thinking, that's how you do it, right? So you do need to stop thinking, of course. We have to let go of coarse thoughts, but it's interesting how, on the one hand, we have these lists of thoughts, and he adds in this other thought, which is not proliferating or complicating our mind. And he says that by thinking on these things, our mind will enter samadhi. So there's almost these layers of complexity where Anuruddha has come up with these qualities, but the Buddha has said, okay, here's how you add a thought, which will make the thoughts not corrupt into complicated thinking. Now you perfect those, and your mind will automatically incline towards samadhi. You don't have to force it to be still. And that I just find really profound. Completely, it just shows the genius in my mind of the Buddha as a teacher, because he's picking out something that his student has done. He's praising them, he's adding to it, and then he's showing the implications where it develops. And so I think, there's so much to say, and so many of the venerables have, what Venerable Ananda and Venerable Shanta Sobhana and Bhante Sadarapala has added comments, and Tridao, and so these things have been really, really helpful, and I don't know how much I should go on. But those were some of the things that were coming to mind, just about how our thinking processes, sometimes we get a little bit too, in Buddhism, we might be so critical on the thinking processes. And I don't want to, make it sound like we should always be just indulging in thoughts, but this to me is pointing out to, we need to really, the Buddha's teaching, to my mind, he's saying you need to purify your thoughts and direct them in a wholesome way. And when you do that, you don't need to think, may my thoughts disappear, because you're already thinking in line with stillness, in line with contentment. So your mind, once you realize, oh, this Dhamma is for someone who's content and who's energetic and mindful, if you really think about that, develop that quality. And then the mind automatically goes there. It doesn't need to say, I can't be thinking, I shouldn't be thinking. Actually, you think this, and then you go automatically. So to me, that's really profound. And if I may just have one more thing, it was a little thing that Venerable Shanta Sobana was talking on that I found really delightful. And there's another part of it that's in the sutta on the fewness of wishes. And the Buddha says, this teaching is for those of few wishes, so appichasa, appichasayang dhammo. And he says, what does that mean though? And it's just this first line that I found really insightful as well. The Buddha says, a mendicant with few wishes doesn't think, may they know me as having few wishes. So the first wish is, I have so few wishes, if they don't wish, may others know me as having few wishes. It's kind of this interesting, complete paradox, right? And that's something that is really helpful too. And the Venerable Shanta Sobana again was for saying this, that we shouldn't, if we develop spiritual qualities, we don't think may others recognize these qualities in me. And I thought that was very interesting. So just some of the things were coming to mind about the thinking and how the Buddha kind of adds onto this and just steers the mind towards the qualities with his wisdom. So thank you so much, Venerables, for listening.
Wonderful, amazing. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Actually, I'm so impressed of how you even pronounce Pali. You're pronouncing these Pali phrases as if you have learned Pali from a young age. So I'm very impressed. So thank you so much, Venerable Ayyavata, for showing up on our biweekly discussion and sharing your insight. I encourage you to join us every discussion to add more beauty and to share your own experience insights with our audience. And so we have a question here. It's from Slav, who is our birthday boy. He is asking a question: what is a most important quality we can cultivate first? It's hard to cultivate all 8 same time. So can anyone, or Venerable Shanta Sobana, or Venerable Ananda, or Venerable Ayyavata, or Venerable Trudeau, which one is, out of these 8, which one is the most important to cultivate? And Slav says he cannot cultivate all 8 at the same time. Okay, Venerable Shanta Sobana.
Yeah, actually, there's our Venerable Vanda is very nicely explained everything, and we're really happy to hear that your way of explaining the Dhamma. Keep going. and actually, the important thing is when it comes to not only this sutra, when it comes to the other sutras, and when it kind of like going to vipassana level of understanding, this collaboration is the most thing that we create the word, waving the word. So thinking on the top of thing, as example. So what we experience today, this everything is the result of expanding thoughts. So this, all the computers from the beginning, it was not like this. Cell phone was not like this, and all this light and it's everything how this or everything became like, because expanding thoughts. So this is when we expand the thoughts, we waving the world, we creating the world. So that's why, rather than depending on the past or the future or adding to your moment of experience, if you are capable to recognize what you experience, that recognition itself liberate you from the getting tangled. So that is what I want to mention.
Yeah. So thank you, Venerable Shanta Sobana. And Venerable Ananda, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was trying to find the hand raise button, couldn't find it. Yeah. So I think it's a good question, because in Buddhism, people get overwhelmed because there are so many numbers. There's 8 of that, 10 of that, so it becomes complicated.
Yeah.
But I think one very simple way to just take a very simple idea: how do we become content with what we have? I think if we can take that for whatever the life, if you want to be a hardcore monastic ascetic, that's fine. Or if you want to be a lay person, wherever, even if you want to be a kid, if you want to be any person in the world, how do we become happy with what we get? And how do we not be too sad about what we did not get or what we could not achieve? And I recently saw a beautiful example given by someone that when we drive a car, we have a rear view mirror. And if we keep looking at the rear view mirror, we are going to crash. And if we have that tunnel vision about the place we want to achieve, we are going to crash. So just forget all those two, and then simply look at the road and do what you are doing. And be content with the very simple things you have. If you get it, fine. If you don't get it, it's still fine. So I think that's the simple message.
And actually, I had that thought too in my mind. Thank you. I see. Venerable Trudeau, what do you think? Which number is the most important thing to cultivate?
First and foremost, good job. Vata, your Pali's better than mine, and I'm 100% Vietnamese. Okay. All right. So I would say discernment. Why? So the definition of discernment would be the ability to judge well. And we need to be able to discern the importance of the Dhamma, the practice of the Dhamma, the reward as a direct result of good and correct practice of the Dhamma. And why discernment so important? Because people don't discern well out there. Lack of faith would be one of them, and they side with the lawyer in their head is what I call it. Somewhere down the line there's this devil's advocate in their head, and that's why we have the lack of mindfulness and lack of the other qualities. So hopefully, the ability to judge well and to have conviction and faith, unshakable faith in the Dhamma, as I discussed with the abbot earlier about the suicide rates in the West. What is one reason why people could take their life, their precious life in this lifetime? One of the reasons would be the lack of faith. And we can also trace back that with not so wise discernment. So I hope that brings people some things to think about there and reflections.
Thank you, Venerable Trudeau. And Venerable Ayavata, what do you think? Which number is the most important to cultivate for us now?
Thank you, Venerable. Well, it's a little bit hard to say. It's kind of like if someone asks, which of the 5 precepts should I do if I pick one? It's kind of like, well, they're all good, but ideally you try all. But I would say that what comes to mind immediately for me is what I said at the beginning, is that I think that there's a progression here. Just for example, Arvadhavir sayang dhamo, upattita sati sayang dhamo, samahita sayang dhamo, panyavato ayang dhamo. So that's, if we think about the 5 balas or the 5 indriyas, virya, sati, samadhi, panya, right? That's the same order. So the only one missing is saddha, faith. But that's kind of assumed here, because obviously, why are we practicing if we don't have faith? So to my mind, there's a progression of, if you don't have few wishes, then you'll be content. If you're content, then you won't go to company. If you don't go to company, then what are you doing? Well, you're going to be purifying your mind. If you're purifying your mind, you're developing mindfulness. If you're developing mindfulness, your mind is going to be inclining
here
towards
shortly,
stillness.
folks.
If your mind is
Give me
still
1
and
second.
unified, then it's going to see things clearly, right? Samahitam chittam yathabhutam jnana dasana. Mind with samadhi sees things in line with reality. So, to my mind, just start with the first one, because if you have the first one fully perfected, you should get all of them if you follow it all the way. And then also the last one that the Buddha added kind of follows, naturally. It's a little bit more profound, but I would say the first one. Go for the first one and try to follow it. But I don't think. I think we can go for all of them. If you find one that you want to develop, that's okay too.
This reminds me of my mother's frequent expression. She would tell everyone, the more the kids, more the suffering. Right? So if you have less, a few wishes, you will be very happy. But having said this, if you study psychoanalysis, there's a story, but we don't have time to talk about that story. But the form of therapy they talked about is called psychosynthesis. And this psychosynthesis is the collection of many elements that help you recover from what you're going through. So this is similar to making a medicinal pill, let's say. A medicinal pill is a combination of various types of herbs. And so every element has some sort of energy. And when you keep adding the energy, healing elements from different things, then it becomes very powerful. So when you take that medicine pill, then it has the power to heal you. So in the same way, I think if we can keep practice, it's not just the first one or second or third one, but if we can keep practicing all these 8, and that will add more energy to make you more spiritual, powerful person. So with this in mind, I would like to end today's biweekly sutra discussion, and so we don't have a month to recite the Patimokkha verses, so I would like to recite the Patimokkha verses. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang Khanti paramang tapotitikka Nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha Nahi pabbajito paropakhati Nasamano hoti parang vihethayanto Anupavado anupaghato Patimokheja sangvaro Mattanyutacha bhattasming Pantancha sayanasanang Adhichittecha ayoga Etang buddhana sasanang Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So I'm very, very grateful to all our venerables for coming together for this bi-weekly sutta discussion. Actually, you shed light. People, I can see in the face of people's eyes. They're very happy. They got to know a lot of stories, a lot of insights, and so this is the best birthday gift for you. Thank you for joining. And I'm also very grateful to all of you, our lay devotees, friends and students who are here on Zoom platform, who watch this program. on Zoom, on YouTube and Facebook Live. And please keep joining, keep participating in this Bible discussion for your own
Let me put the
spiritual
sutta
growth.
here for you guys.
And so may all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha continue to be with all of you for your physical and psychological well-being. May Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect and guard all of you with the divine blessings for your health and safety. May all blessings of the Noble Triple Gem continue to be with you throughout your life for all happiness and peace. Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitatta. May all sentient beings be well, happy, and peaceful. With this loving thought in mind, I would like to say good night from Toronto, Canada, and I'm hoping to see you all in 2 weeks' time. Bye bye.
Ooh, all right. Well, this thing died. Okay, thank you, folks, for being patient and see what's going on here. Let me clear my screen here real quick so I can talk to you guys. The phone is on. I'm not sure who's knocking on that door. Okay, so today's, if you're just now joining, I invite you to either look up Venerable Sarnapala's YouTube, where it was all recorded. You can go on my YouTube, my Facebook. The sutta is very long, very requires a lot of deep reflection, thinking. And you guys know the way how I responded earlier. If I respond that way, it means it's very dense type reading. Like I said, you can literally take the whole year to practice this sutta that breaks up into I believe it was 8 or 9 paragraphs. But I put it here for you all to read. So yeah, Yori, yeah. I gotta get this door. Oh goodness, why are they knocking right now? You guys give me 1 second. Dạ, tại vì con họ đang mời con xuống dạ trên bàn. Dạ, bao lâu nữa? Không có đi bây giờ. Yeah. The abbot is now inviting me to go eat breakfast. That's why he's been knocking on the door and the sun's coming out. And I've been hiding in this little tiny room. I sincerely apologize to all of you. But please continue with your questions as I conclude this. And I promise if the question is super good, I'm going to go and fire it all back up and answer it for all of you. This is the life of Venerable Jidao, where of which he doesn't have time for pretty much anything. There are always competing priorities, but I'm always keeping all of you in mind. May you all be well, be happy, be free, and always be healthy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.